My friends, we do indeed, as Paul mentioned, meet in this place to cultivate peace within us and without us. But I am mindful as we gather this morning that we gather in a society with turmoil. This week, Jacob Blake, a black man, was shot and paralyzed by state-sanctioned violence. The violence which this symbolizes and has been continuously visited upon the black community cries out for our attention and our action. Meanwhile, people in California struggle against fires that are unprecedented in several ways. People in Louisiana and Texas struggle to come out of the rubble of a hurricane and remake their lives. Political divisions continue to fester and intensify across our country. All of us continue to be traumatized at some level, consciously or unconsciously, by participating in an economy which forces most human beings to be exploited and an ecosystem to be exploited so that a very few can accumulate enormous wealth. And of course, COVID-19 rages on. Such is our world today, the world in which we are gathered in this moment and do indeed seek peace within us and around us. Watching people try to bring about unity among the various groups and factions of our society feels often like trying to watch someone piece together and glue together pieces of a puzzle which do not fit. The various factions of our society cry out to be heard and listened, but often fail, and unity proves elusive. We see this playing out daily at every level of our society. So let us take a moment to reaffirm why we are here and where we stand in relationship to this turmoil. All of life is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. And nothing we could do or say can change this fact. Not our wars, not the animosity between racial groups, not our exploitation of the ecosystem, nor will anything else destroy the unity and interconnections of life itself. So we are here not to struggle, to force the world to embrace a diversity it shuns, but rather we are here to acknowledge reality and let go of the illusion of our separateness and our absolute independence. So much human effort goes towards trying to obscure or ignore the unity of life. May we embrace reality as it is, a continuous festival of interdependence and diversity. We are not here to do the impossible or say the impossible or ask to believe the impossible. We are here to recognize reality and affirm the truth of the unity of life, of which we are a part. to seek to get in harmony with life, not to struggle against it, and with others to join the flow of life itself. May this awareness grow in us and between us as we gather in this hour. As we light our chalice flame today, may we be mindful that we are a part of something much larger than ourselves. We are a part of many groups in large and small gatherings across this country. Unitarian Universalist congregations gather together and light the chalice flame, as I will in a moment. And there is a bond, an indestructible bond between all of us. And there are also behind us ancestors, now gone from this world, who made this moment possible by their work, dedication, and actions. They are with us too. And there will be people in the future we create, who will follow us, and by our actions and witness, they too will have a path to follow. So as we gather here, let us be aware that we are connected to many others. So now we light our chalice to remind us, as ancient wisdom teaches, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. Light guides us and is within all of us as we gather once again in this great community for common worship. Which is to be a self in relationship to other selves in such a way that both sides may flourish. And I also extended that by saying we are related to more than persons. We are related to the past, to family members who have passed away, to the young people in our lives who represent the future, to the cultural and institutional forces of society, and of course to nature itself, a relationship upon which we are utterly dependent. And I called for each of us to be mindful that we are invited to join the dance of life, of being a self harmoniously with other selves and other forces of life in a way that allows all to flourish. But that is not the world we live in. And let us take a moment to note that before I go further. This week, a police officer shot a black man, Jacob Blake, 7 times in the back in the presence of his 3 children. Those children range from ages of 3 to 8. This week as well, a young white man, Kyle Rittenhouse, carried a combat military level weapon into the vicinity of a group of protests. He did not have a permit for that weapon. In a video, after he has shot others, he can be seen walking towards police who were in their cars with his hands up. He was not detained. He was not questioned. he was not arrested until he reached his home in Illinois. After this occurred, at least two very high-profile broadcasters, people who are known throughout the country, defended this individual for what he did, and a number of politicians across the South have praised him, citing his actions as, quote, fighting back. The difference between these two persons, the way their actions were perceived, what actions were tolerated, how the public responded to them, speaks volumes about the profound racism and white supremacist ideology that permeates our society. Hidden from view, yes, but erupts into reality on occasions where it chooses to express itself. People say, I am overwhelmed. What can I do? That is a question that must be answered by each person in their own way, following the guidance of their own conscience. However, I believe that we who are gathered here, we who have stated our commitment to this religious institution, are called to do something specific. And it's not just a matter of a one of, but something we are called continually to be engaged in. We are here to help people understand what it means to be engaged in relationships and in a community in which compassion, openness, equality, and mutual respect reigns. And a place where those qualities permeate our common life. And secondly, we are called to engage in the more difficult work of projecting out into our communities those values reflected in relationships of compassion, openness, mutual respect, and caring. The strife, confusion, and chaos that is seen in our society drives people towards distrust, suspicion, anger, resentment, and many strong, powerful emotions. And so there is a real danger that we might be caught up in the disruption and confusion and polarization of our society. But if we do, we lose something that is precious and the key to stabilizing our communities and society itself. And I agree with the great teacher and prophet, Father Richard Rohr, who stated, if we are going to rebuild society, we first need to rebuild ourselves. So let us take a moment to reflect on the following fundamental fact. We are always, every moment of our life, seeking to be a self that is affirmed and appreciated and heard in relationship to others, where we are extending to them the same thing that we are hoping to receive from others. And I believe it's just that simple. It is as simple as the teaching of the Golden Rule. However, in life, in reality, in the world of relationships as we experience them in our families and in our communities and in society, certainly, we see that over and over again, people become frustrated by not receiving affirmation, not being heard, not being honored, not being respected, not being valued. And what we see happening in society is brilliantly captured by the insight of Dr. Murray Bowen, who wrote that when we are frustrated in the tension and lack of satisfaction in our relationship, we move sometimes instantly towards 5 different postures. One of them is we attack another person. If they do not respect us, we attack them. We're very familiar with that response. Another response is a cutoff. Someone just leaves the relationship, they flee. Another type of response is the opposite. They fuse their identity with another. Another type of response is that a person will enter into a relationship in which one underfunctions and the other overfunctions. One is the know-it-all and the do-it-all and the successful and accomplished one, and the other one is the underfunctioning, underachieving person. And they kind of form a bond. And then finally, a final way in which we deal with dissatisfaction in relationship is the triangle, which is talking about a person to a third person rather than talking directly to the person with whom we have a difference or need to discuss something. And our society and our relationships are filled continuously with these reactions. However, no matter how great our disappointment or dissatisfaction with the fulfillment of relationship, no matter how deep our bitterness about what we have experienced from others, there is in us an innate yearning to be a genuine self in relationship to others. And we are called back again and again to try to make it better, to renew life. Historically, religions have served the purpose of trying to help people find a way to live harmoniously with others in relationships of mutual respect. But religions have been known to fight one another and to engage in wars against one another to try to prove that their way is the best. We must not be confused by that. There are many ways to form relationships of meaning and purpose to create what we might call sacred relationships. There are teachings in Buddhism, Christianity, humanism, the Islamic tradition, the Jewish tradition, and many others. There is no lack of ways to try to understand what will help us live in peace with others. We must not be confused by this diversity of interpretations of what meaningful relationships mean. We must not lose sight of the essential nature of human relationships. The central issue is not what we know or how much we know or whether we have the best system for understanding human life and human nature. The most important issue, as far as I'm concerned, is the extent to which we integrate into our heart and mind what we do know. And some of the wisest people I have known, and some of the most compassionate people I have known, are in some ways profoundly simple people. They understand that they do not need something complicated to understand how to live life harmoniously. They need to struggle with themselves to integrate what they know and to live it as fully as possible. I once knew a man who was, in my estimate, one of the most spiritual people I had ever known. And he was not religious in any conventional sense of the word. He attended a UU church because his wife liked to go there, not because he himself felt a need to go there. And he found his spiritual nourishment by walking the mountainsides of the great mountains of Washington State, Oregon, and British Columbia. He found deep nurture there in giving him a sense that he was a part of this great thing called nature. But in relationship to other people, he had one rule, and I know because I talked to him several times. And he told me, Ed, I am only always trying to do the right thing. And I'm trying to do the right thing for me. I'm trying to do the right thing for the other person. I'm trying to do the right thing for any person whose life touches mine. And he mused that he thought it was hilarious that people tried to make something complicated that wasn't. But what he did, and why his example was so powerful for me, is that he took something simple and brought it into his heart and mind and tried to practice it by his words and actions. He did not talk about it. He did not preach about it. He did not instruct others to do it. He just did it. In closing, let us be clear. The work we are doing here is very important. We are trying to affirm the reality that is, that we belong to a world of interdependence, a world that is deeply interconnected, and a life and a world in which we flourish and others flourish as we attempt to move ever more deeply into harmony with life within us and outside of us. Let us go with an awareness of the importance of the work we do here. Amen. As we close our time together and I extinguish our chalice, may its flame, as it is extinguished, go out into each human heart to give us its warmth, to give us its light, for us to see and do what is true and right. As I close, I would like to thank Ann Bearfield for sharing joys and concerns, helping us to be in touch with what's happening in this community. I would like to thank as well the great work of the caring community that is doing so much, so well to keep us together and truly part of a community as we go through this time. I'd also like to thank Greg, our cameraman, for his wonderful work, and Jack, our technological guru, for making all of this possible. And I close with these words. We deny our interconnections and our interdependencies, though they are always there at every moment of our lives, waiting for us to acknowledge them and to respond. And in our denial, we divide the world into friend and enemy, persons and nature, and in many other ways, but none of these divisions are ultimately real. The fact is, everything and everyone is part of the great unity of life to which we are called to belong and participate. The Dalai Lama years ago said these words, "I truly believe we can learn to relate to one another on the basis of our shared humanity. And if individuals can learn to do that, there will immediately grow a deep trust between us." Amen. Go in peace.